Idaho Matters podcast is brought to you by St. Luke's On-Demand Virtual Care, which allows patients to see a provider from their home using a computer or smartphone with on-demand care for common ailments, such as a cough, sore throat, or a sinus issue. More information at stlukesonline.org.
Family, work, school, you've got a lot going on. I'm Aisha Roscoe from NPR. We know you're busy, so we've made staying informed easy. The Boise State Public Radio mobile app is a hassle-free way to keep up with the latest news and stories. Whether you're cooking dinner, folding laundry, or just tackling your daily to-do list, staying in the know has never been so simple. Download the free Boise State Public Radio app today, so even when you're busy, you'll never miss a beat. And join me for Weekend Edition every Sunday morning from 6 to 10 on Boise State Public Radio News.
From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Gemma Gaudette. This is Idaho Matters. A new movie, The Cholesterol Code, is raising questions and pushing back on traditional medical advice when it comes to cholesterol, as well as heart and metabolic health, through one man's journey to find a better solution for his own health issues. Well, today we're joined by the film's writer and director, Jennifer Eisenhart. She is also a principal at Boise-based Wide Eye Productions. Jennifer, it's nice to have you back on the show.
Hi, Gemma. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
So, Jennifer, give us a quick synopsis of this new film, The Cholesterol Code.
Okay, well, The Cholesterol Code is really a documentary that challenges what we think we know about cholesterol and really asks whether the science is as settled as we've been told. It follows an engineer kind of turned citizen scientist, Dave Feldman, as he kind of digs into one of medicine's most debated questions, and that is LDL cholesterol always a dangerous thing when it's elevated? And we also feature a lot of people who are kind of in this same situation as he is.
So talk to us a little bit more about Dave Feldman, because folks may not be familiar with him. So is the movie primarily about the science behind what are these, ketogenic or keto diets, or is it more about, Feldman's personal quest to really challenge conventional wisdom around cholesterol?
It's a blend, really. Dave Feldman is really our protagonist in the documentary, and he's a person who was pre-diabetic and went on a low-carb diet and was able to reverse his diabetes, his pre-diabetes, lost 30 pounds, his blood pressure came down, everything improved, but his LDL cholesterol went up. And so he, being a software engineer, he just has a scientific mind. He became extremely curious about this, and he basically started chasing this medical mystery around the world, and meeting people all over the world that experience this phenomenon of going on a very low carbohydrate diet. Everything improves, lots of, physical improvements, metabolic health improvements, but the cholesterol. And so they can feel like they're like caught between a rock and a hard place. Like many of the people in the film that we feature have, reversed serious chronic health conditions, but then the cholesterol number comes up and their physicians get really concerned. And so they're like, well, am I trading good health today for a heart attack tomorrow? What is going to happen? And so Dave sort of launches this inquiry and this scientific study, and the study is a main theme of the film. He connects with a research institute and puts together a study using high-resolution heart scans. So LDL cholesterol is what you call a surrogate marker. It's an indicator that you may have something to be concerned about. But high-resolution heart scans can actually look inside and see if there is disease or the beginnings of disease. And so that's kind of the premise of the study. And then also woven into the film are many stories of real people who are caught in this same situation.
So my understanding, Jennifer, is that the film really centers in part on this research into the lean mass hyperresponders. So these are people who are on these ketogenic diets who do have very, very high LDL cholesterol like Dave, but otherwise they really have healthy metabolic markers, as you said. And my understanding is the study followed about 100 people for a year, and it concluded that there wasn't a clear link between their high LDL levels and plaque progression. So how did you as a filmmaker go about presenting those findings?
Well, it was wonderful to have a scientific research study that we could follow along and see the science play out in real time, to see those people go in and have those scans done on their heart. We knew their numbers. We understood, that traditional medicine would consider them to be at very high risk for heart attack. I mean, these are people that have LDL cholesterol at 300, 400. One of the people in the film has an LDL cholesterol of 600 milligrams per
Wow.
deciliter, which is like more than 6 times, the limit for conventional medicine. But we follow these people throughout the film, and we learn about not only the major health improvements, people reversing type 2 diabetes, people restoring mental health, recovering from serious mental health conditions. But then we also learn about whether or not they're actually developing plaque. And that's something that can be seen with these scans. So having the scientific research study as kind of the backbone of the film, it's really fascinating. But then there's also all these personal stories of recovery that are kind of woven throughout that as well. So
I
it's
do
really
know that
interesting.
I do know that since the study was published, a number of cardiologists and researchers have raised concerns about the study design, including the lack of a control group, and really
Mhm,
what they're saying is a relatively short time frame for measuring
mhm.
plaque progression. So, did you address any of this in the film? These criticisms?
Yeah, we include, there are critics of Dave's research and people who feel that he shouldn't even do the research at all in the first place. That it's unethical to have people with this high of a cholesterol who are not taking statins be involved in a research study. There's definitely those criticisms. But what's interesting is the data and how it comes out in the end. So you just sort of have to watch the film to see, and
Hmm.
people who have been following the study will see what the final analyses have shown to the study, and then also all of the people that we feature in the film, what their heart scans show in the end. It's very interesting. It's a unique moment right now, I think, to be looking at metabolic health. Is a major theme in the film, and the importance of metabolic health right now, I think, is really coming to the forefront in this country. But there are still these concerns about certain diets and whether or not are they helping or are they hurting.
Hmm.
And so I think this study really puts some of that to rest, even though there is some controversy around whether or not this should even be looked at.
Hmm. Well, and some people even have controversy, as you said, around Dave Feldman himself, because he did help
Mhm.
fund the research through his Citizen Science Foundation, and he is a really prominent advocate for keto diets. He doesn't make, even my research into him, he doesn't make any bones about that.
Mhm.
However, some researchers are concerned that, all of that could introduce bias. So as a filmmaker, how do you evaluate, these potential, you can call them conflicts of interest or again, these criticisms around Dave, his foundation, his advocacy work?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's interesting because all cholesterol research to this point has really been funded by pharmaceutical companies. And it's actually all of that information is sort of held as proprietary information that really can't even be accessed, the raw data to most cholesterol research. And what I find interesting about Dave is he does have a nonprofit organization, and they crowd funded this research study. So there was no big pharma here to fund this trial. So Dave reached out to his followers, and they crowd funded this research study. And that funding was then sent to the Lundquist Institute, which is an arm of UCLA in California. And that is highly reputable organization that actually conducted the study. So Dave didn't conduct the study, but he fundraised for the study. Very similar, pharmaceutical companies do this all the time. They fund research that is conducted by research institutes. So it's really no different than what you would find in any other type of study. Other than that, it was crowdfunded, and I thought they thought that was a fascinating part of the story. Actually, that they crowdfunded a research trial. I don't know how many times that's even been done, and UCLA is a very reputable. The Lundquist Institute is a very reputable research institute. So that's an important piece, I would say.
Do you see the film as arguing that high LDL cholesterol may not be harmful in certain contexts, or more as raising questions about whether the current model that we have is incomplete?
It's definitely just raising questions. It is not. I think people would like to paint Dave as an LDL denier, or saying that LDL cholesterol doesn't matter, and that is not what this film is, and I don't think that's what that research is either. It's raising questions of is it always bad, and should people be scared away from a nutritional plan that could restore their health? I mean, we feature people in the film that are reversing mental health conditions, very serious mental health conditions like bipolar and schizophrenia, with metabolic therapies, and yet then this one marker will come up, LDL cholesterol, and then they're sort of caught. What should I do? I've just gotten rid of a very serious situation and really restored my life. Do I need to be concerned? And so it's just raising the question and bringing in new technology, high resolution heart scan imaging, to where people can look inside and see and make a decision for themselves. So really, I would say it's raising questions, not making declarations.
And I think it's fair to say that nutrition science is already an area where the public receives a lot of conflicting messages. So did you take that into account, or were you concerned about that when it comes to presenting this research, if there wasn't broader context and how it could contribute to confusion around something like heart disease risk?
Yeah, I think one thing to keep in mind is, the film really is centered around ketogenic metabolic therapies, and a ketogenic diet, for people who don't know, is a diet that's very low in carbohydrate, like less than 20 grams a day of carbohydrate. But it's not any one nutritional approach. Ketosis is a metabolic state. It's a state of burning fat for fuel, but you can achieve ketosis through a variety of eating patterns. So there's, vegetarian keto. There's even, fully vegan keto. It's a metabolic approach that encompasses many different eating patterns. So that's something that I think maybe people don't realize, that this is not about diet wars. It's about a metabolic state that can actually help improve many different chronic illnesses.
Before I let you go, let's step back from the debate itself around all of this. What are you hoping that folks take away from seeing the film?
I hope that people take away the ability to sort of think critically and not just accept the headlines, to understand that you have agency when it comes to your own health, and also to understand that nutrition can play a huge role in reversing many chronic diseases. We have a lot of agency as individuals, and we have a chronic disease crisis in this country. And I hope that people understand that this is something they can take back and they can improve with simple changes in nutrition.
Well, I want to thank you so much for taking time to talk with us today. We've been speaking with writer and director Jennifer Eisenhart, who is also a principal at Boise-based Wide Eye Productions. We've been talking about the new film, The Cholesterol Code. It will be premiering at the Flicks in downtown Boise on April 16th. And that'll do it for this episode of Idaho Matters. Make sure you check out our podcast feed because you can find more episodes of topics that might be interesting to you. And for more local news and headlines, make sure you subscribe to the Connector podcast. If you learned something from this episode today, share it with someone else who needs to know about it.
If you like podcasts like this, explore more from the Boise State Public Radio podcast family. There you'll find a mix of daily news, Idaho Voices, and in-depth series on a wide range of topics. I'm talking wild horses, political scandals, sustainable ranching, and militia groups in a post-January 6th world. Wherever you get your podcasts, just search Boise State Public Radio to find what Idaho's NPR station has in store for you.